Hi everyone, welcome to another crochet tutorial with me, Laura, and I've been designing little cute fruits lately. So in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make this little cute pineapple, a mini pineapple, and in my next video as well I'm going to show you how to make this little watermelon slice as well. Okay, so for this little pineapple we're going to need some yellow yarn and some green yarn, but you can use any yarn that you like. Any weight that you like as well, because I've just used a DK yellow yarn. That's a light worsted weight yarn, and this green is actually thinner, so I'm using a thinner yarn for the leaves at the top. So you can use DK light worsted, you can use a worsted weight, anything that you like really. It's a really good yarn scrap project. And with that I'm using a 2.5mm crochet hook, but you can use any hook size that's suitable for the yarn you're using. This is actually slightly smaller for the yarn I'm using, so I'm being a complete rebel. It's also a good idea to have a little bit of toy stuffing. You need a little bit of that as well. And you're going to need a pair of scissors and a yarn tapestry needle as well for sewing in those ends. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so we're going to start off with the yellow yarn first. And we're going to work 8 single crochet into a 4 chain loop. So this pattern's in US terminology. So if I just do my slip knot first. So single crochet in UK terminology is a double crochet. But the first thing we're going to do, we're going to chain 4 to begin. Let's get our 4 chain loop. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 4. Put our hook into our first chain. Bring the yarn through the first chain and bring it straight through the loop on your hook to form a little 4 chain loop joined at the beginning and the end. In the middle obviously is going to be a hole. Don't confuse it with your first chain hole, which can look quite big. You need to find that center hole there. And into there we're going to do 8 single crochets. I'm going to put my hook straight into there. Bring the yarn through, then just wrapping it around the chains, do a single crochet. We want 8 of those, so that's 1, back in there again, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, then just pull the center hole to bring that in a little bit. Then what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch into our first single crochet. So 2, 4, 6, 8. Find that first one. Check you've got 8 stitches. You hook into there, bring the yarn through and straight through the loop on your hook to join the round. Into that round, got a stitch count of 8. Okay, and that's using a DK light worsted weight yarn. If you're using a thicker yarn, you may only be able to do 6 single crochets. So just work to an even number of stitches. Then what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1. We're not going to count that as a stitch, so don't count that as a stitch. Then go back into the same stitch you just slip stitched into, go back into there, and do 2 single crochet. So 1 and another one in the same stitch. Get that tail out of the way. 2. Okay, 2 single crochet in there. I'm going to do 2 single crochet in each stitch round back to the beginning, so end up with a stitch count of 16. So 2 in the next stitch. Okay, 2 single crochet in there, 2 single crochet in the next stitch. 1 and 2. Okay, so you've got 2 in there, 2 in the next one. Two single crochet in the next stitch. 2 single crochet in the next stitch, 2 in the next stitch, 2 in the last stitch, and check your stitch count is 16, so you know this is the last stitch. Sometimes it looks like there's another stitch there, but that is not a stitch. So check you've got 16, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Find that first single crochet, so don't work into that fake stitch. First single crochet and slip stitch into there. To join the round. So that's the end of round 2. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create the little bead stitch. This is actually called a bead stitch, so it's going to be the same as the ploughed field on my Rode Playmat Cal. I don't know if you remember that. So it's the same stitch as that, and it creates these nice little pineapple shaped bubbles. So to do that, we're just going to do a little chain 1. Again, don't count that as a stitch. And we're going to do 1 double crochet. So in UK terminology, that's a treble. So we're going to yarn over in the same stitch we just slip stitched into. So go back into there and do a double crochet. Okay, now we're going to do 1 bead stitch. Now to do a bead stitch, it's double crochets sort of. We're going to yarn over and we're going to wrap. We're going to go in between this little bit of yarn here, this little chain 1, and the double crochet we've just created. So we're going to put our hook in between that chain 1 and that double crochet. We're going to bring the yarn through there. Okay, then we're going to yarn over again and go back into there again. Okay, we'll do that one more time, 3rd time, yarn over and go back into that gap again. Bring the yarn through. Okay, so you end up with all these loops. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loops. Then what we do is we're just going to yarn over. We're going to pull through all 7 loops to create a little bead stitch. Then what we're going to do is we're going to skip the next stitch. So skip the next stitch, yarn over, and then the next stitch. So skip 1, and the next stitch we do a double crochet. It's a normal double crochet, and then we're going to do our next bead stitch in between the last bead stitch and this double crochet, so it's a bit bigger this time. So what we do is we yarn over, go into the gap in between, bring the yarn through, so you've got 3 loops, yarn over, go into the gap, bring the yarn through, got 5 loops, yarn over, into the gap, bring the yarn through, 7 loops, yarn over, pull through all 7 loops. What helps is to face your hook down and give it a little wiggle. And there's our next bead stitch. And we're going to repeat that all the way round, and I'm not sure how many bead stitches we end up at the end. We'll count at the end, but what we're going to do now is be careful not to count that there as a stitch, because I did that on the first one. You need to make sure that that's where the double crochet is coming out from. So skip the next stitch, and then the next stitch we do a double crochet. So don't confuse that as an empty stitch. Skip the next one, 1 double crochet in the next stitch. Okay, so it's just skip 1 and then 1 double crochet. Then our next bead stitch, so we yarn over into the gap in between the last bead stitch and the double crochet, bring the yarn through, 3 loops, yarn over into the gap, bring the yarn through, 5 loops, yarn over into the gap, bring the yarn through, 7 loops, yarn over, and get rid of the bit of black fibre, wherever that's from, yarn over, pull through all 7 loops, and then carry on. So skip the next stitch, 1 double crochet in the next stitch, skip 1, 1 double crochet, and just repeat this all the way back to the beginning. I think you end up with 8 bead stitches, and it should just roll up this way. to do our next bead stitch. Just wrapping it around that double crochet. Then skip one double crochet in the next stitch. And our next bead stitch. So you go into the gap 3 times. Skip one double crochet. And that one's been used, so skip one double crochet. Next bead stitch. 2, 3. And skip one double crochet into the second to last stitch. Do one more bead stitch. So you just go into that gap 3 times, yarning over before you go in each time. Then you should have 1 stitch left. Don't confuse that with a stitch, that's your fake stitch. That one's been used, that you've got 1 stitch left. Skip that, find your first stitch, which is going to be slightly tucked down the side actually of that bead stitch. So there's your little chain 1, there's your first stitch, which is just slightly on the corner, so don't miss it. We're going to slip stitch into there. And it should go a little bit more bowl shaped like that. And you should have, how many have we got? 2, 4, 6, 8. So we've got 8 bead stitches. If you started off with 6 single crochet at the very beginning, if you're using a thicker yarn, then you'll probably end up with 6 bead stitches instead of 8. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do another round of that. Same thing again. So we'll do a little chain 1 to begin. Don't count that as a stitch. Then we're going to yarn over and we're going to do 1 double crochet in the same stitch we just slip stitched into. So not this bead stitch here, this same stitch down here. Do 1 double crochet in there. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to do the bead stitch. So yarn over, going in between the chain 1 and the double crochet on this first one. 1, yarn over in there again, 2, yarn over into there again, 3, and yarn over, pull through all 7. Then we skip the next stitch, which is above the bead stitch, find the next stitch, which is in between the bead stitches, and do a double crochet in there. So it's the same as the last round, pretty much. Now we do a bead stitch in between that bead stitch and the double crochet. Okay. Then skip the stitch above the bead and find the next stitch, do a double crochet in there. So the double crochets end up in between the bead stitches. Do another bead stitch around there. 2, 3. Skip the next stitch, 1 double crochet in the next stitch. Okay, so just repeat that back to the beginning for this round. And then we move on to the next round. And then the last one, skip that bead stitch in the next stitch. So last double crochet, do your last bead stitch around there, then we skip the last stitch above the bead and then slip stitch into your first stitch. So remember, it slides down to the side, that first stitch. There's your tiny little chain one there. There's actually your first stitch on the side. So we're just going to slip stitch into there. Bring the yarn through. Do a slip stitch. Okay, so that's the end of round 2. So we're just going to repeat that again one more time until we've got 3 rounds of our bead stitches. So same thing again. Do a little chain 1 to begin and do 1 double crochet in that same stitch you slip stitched into, and then work your first bead stitch around that double crochet in between the chain, then we skip the bead stitch and then 1 double crochet in that next stitch in between, and just repeat that all the way around for another round of bead stitches. So I'll do that, then I'll come back and show you how to do the leaves. Okay, and then when you're back at the beginning, we skip the last stitch, find that first double crochet, so it's not the stitch right above the bead stitch, it's the one on the side. I'm going to slip stitch into there to join the round. Okay, so that's the end of our bead stitches for our little pineapple. What we're going to do now is we're just going to single crochet 2 together until we get a stitch count of 8. So just to have a stitch count of 16 at the moment. So we'll do a little chain 1 to begin, don't count that as a stitch. And starting in the same stitch you just slip stitched into, this one here, I'm going to single crochet 2 together. So go back into there, bring the yarn through, then go into the stitch above the bead stitch. Bring the yarn through, got 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3, single crochet 2 together, and just repeat that all the way around. So go into the next stitch, bring the yarn through, the next stitch, bring the yarn through, yarn over, pull through all 3. So just repeat that all the way around until you've got a stitch count of 8. And the last 2, single crochet those 2 together. It's getting super fiddly to do on camera. And find the first single crochet that you did. We're going to put our hook into there and do a slip stitch. Okay, so let's bring up a loop. Your hole should be quite small now, you should only have a stitch count of 8 there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to stuff our little pineapple with a little bit of toy stuffing. So just get some toy stuffing, and using some blunt scissors is the easiest way to push the stuffing inside. Okay, so I've stuffed the little pineapple. Keep going to go say pumpkin. Not a pumpkin, it's a pineapple. Then we're going to get our green yarn. So this can be the same weight as your pineapple yarn, or you can use a thinner yarn. This just happens to be a thinner yarn. You don't have to use a thinner yarn. It's a real yarn scrap project. What we're going to do is we're going to join this green in a little chain 1. So leaving the yellow down there. We put that over our hook. Just bring that through our loop on our hook. Now we're working with our green. Just going to pull the yellow tight, pull to bring that down. And now we're working with our green. And to do the leaves, all we do is we chain 11. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I've chained 11. Then in our second chain from our hook, so don't count the loop on your hook, there's your first, there's your second. in there we're going to do 1 single crochet. So in UK terminology that's a double crochet. So 1 single crochet in there. This yarn is really stringy. There we go, single crochet in there. Then 1 half double crochet in the next chain. So in the next chain do a half double crochet. So in UK terminology that's a half treble. All through all 3. Then we're going to do 1 double crochet in the next chain. So in UK terminology that's a treble. So 1 double crochet in there. Then we're going to do 1 treble crochet in the next 4 stitches. So in UK terminology that's a double treble. So to do that we wrap the yarn around our hook twice, go into the next chain, bring the yarn through, then we yarn over and pull through 2 until we get to the end. So we yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, and that does a treble crochet. We'll do a treble in the next chain as well, so it's in the next 4, and yarn through, so yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Easy way to remember. Do a treble in the next chain, pull through 2, it's really bad, pull through 2, pull through 2, then we're going to do a treble in the next chain, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. See, I'm not very neat, you can do a much neater job than me. Then 1 double crochet in the next chain, so just a double crochet in the next chain. Okay, so that's a treble in UK terminology. Then a half double crochet in the next chain, so that's a half treble in UK terminology. Then we're going to finish up with 1 single crochet in the last stitch. So you'd have 1 chain left, and in there just do a single crochet. In UK terminology, a double crochet. Okie dokie, and that's our little leaf. Then what we're going to do is we are going to slip stitch onto the main piece of the pineapple. So what I'm going to do is just go in anywhere at the top and come out like that. You can just slip stitch anywhere near the top, nice and easy. You don't need to worry about stitch counts. You just want to join the leaf, otherwise it gets way too fiddly. Okay, and that's slip stitch to join, and then you just repeat those same steps for as many times as you want for however many leaves you want. So I did 5 leaves in total. So all you do is same thing again, you chain 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and your second chain from your hook is a single crochet, okay, single crochet, then yarn over, and in the next chain is a half double crochet. Then in the next chain it's a double crochet, then in the next chain it's a treble, and we're going to do 1 treble in the next 4 chains. Okay, so just pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. So 1 treble in the next 4. Our second one, our third one, and our 4th treble. So 1 treble in the next 4, a lot neater than me. Then it's 1 double crochet in the next chain, and a half double crochet in the next chain. Then finish up with a single crochet in that last chain. Little single crochet. Then all we do is we just find, I'm going to go back in with the same stitch I came out last time, and I'm going to come out the next stitch. I'm kind of doing like a sort of a front post stitch really, just a slip stitch onto the main part of the pineapple, like so. And I'm just going to repeat that all the way around. So I'm going to do another 3 of these petals, and then we'll come back and look at the finished pineapple. Okay. So there we go, just repeated that 3 more times. So you've got 5 of these leaves, and then just hide all your tail ends, and there's your finished little pineapple. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I hope you managed to follow along, and in my next video I'm going to show you how to make a little watermelon slice. I've also done some videos a while ago on some making a lemon and an orange as well, and some slices, so I'll put links to those in the description below as well, so we can have a big fruit collection. Okay, so join me next time for our little watermelon slice. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.